Good evening and welcome to New Jersey Fire Guys. I'm your host, Nick Palumbo, and we have an excellent show tonight. Deputy Chief Alider Pratts from the North Hudson Fire and Emergency. Deputy Chief Pratts is the newest partner to join the Promotional Prep program, along with Chiefs Mike Terpak and Frank Montagne. He is a veteran of the United States Marine Corps. He has served with the North Hudson Regional Fire Rescue since 2004 and has risen quickly through the ranks by scoring at the top of each of his promotional test lists. Pratts became captain in 2010, where he worked in the department's busiest companies, including Squad Company 1 and Tower Ladder 3 in West New York. He became Battalion Chief in 2017, where he covered in all three battalions as the Third Platoon's rotating Battalion Chief. He was promoted to Deputy Chief in 2022, and he currently serves as the department's Chief of Special Operations, as well as the department's training division. For the third division, he is the citywide tour commander. He also serves with the UASI Metro USAR command staff and is New Jersey Division of Fire Safety subject matter expert in fire service active shooter response, in which capacity he maintains leadership roles in local, county, and state interdisciplinary committees. Deputy Chief Pratt is a New Jersey certified level 2 fire instructor and teaches at the Monmouth County Fire Academy and as part of the Keene University Fire Safety Programs cadre. He has also written and published several articles with Fire Engineering Magazine. Now, without further ado, I bring to you Chief Alider Pratts. Hey, Chief, how are you? Good evening.
Good evening, Nick, man. I'm very excited. Excellent, man. I'm excited to be here. Wish you the best of luck. Congratulations on this new podcast.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Couldn't have done it without the nice kick in the butt from you and the little motivational shove.
Well, like we were saying off camera before, was that sometimes we have to kind of elevate each other and push each other in the right direction. And you had a great concept when you reached out to me and told me what you were thinking about doing, man. I said, man, it's excellent, man. It's, New Jersey is we have a lot of unique, firefighters and fire officers, and I think it'll be excellent to highlight that.
Absolutely. And not even just career firemen, it's volunteers and guys that grew up or born and raised in New Jersey and went elsewhere. That's really what started the wheels of the thought process in my head. And but all right, so let's get started. Let's tell everybody about you, where you grew up, your early life, and we'll matriculate into your outstanding career so far.
All right, thanks. I grew up in Union City, New Jersey. It's the most densely populated city in the country. We are a stone's throw away from New York City. We have an unobstructed view of the New York City skyline. The North Hudson area covers different cities, but Union City, the apartment that I grew up in specifically, we would go up to the roof as kids. And we had a full unobstructed view of New York City, and we would see the fireworks and everything from up there. I grew up, my mom had to, open up the window at night and yell out my name to get me to come inside. We were, running around playing manhunt, playing tag, getting our bumps and bruises on the the sidewalk, playing handball and wallsies along the side of our building, which was a 5-story tenement walk up. That was my early upbringing, which I think, with my mom, being a single mother, did a great job of raising myself and my sister. That's where we grew up. We moved around a little bit until, eventually after graduating high school, I ended up joining the Marine Corps. I joined the reserves, that's my early life.
All right, so let's move on. Like you said, right out of high school, you joined the Marine Corps, and what year was that? What year did you graduate high school?
Graduated high school in 1995. I joined the reserves. My plan at the time was to, because I wanted to go to college, but I also wanted to serve, and so I wanted to be able to do both at the same time. And the recruiter, which I actually signed up when I was a junior in high school, my mom had to, sign away permission and everything to get me to do it. Tears and everything. She didn't want to do it, but I said, Mom, either you sign this paper now, or I'm going to do it when I turn 18. Either way. So, she did. And so I had a year in what's called a delayed entry program, working with the recruiter, and we would go on camping trips. We would go on runs and exercises, and it was great. It was a great time. But I knew I wanted to go to college at the same time as well. So the plan at the time was for me to do both, and then eventually go to officer candidate school once I got my degree, or once I entered my junior year of college. But just like everything else, we think we have a plan, and we think it's going to go a certain way, and things change, and you kind of move in a different direction. So that ended up not being the case. So while I was in college, I had this itch to join the law enforcement community, and so I went to school for criminal justice. And my focus kind of shifted from making the Marine Corps a career to trying to find my way into federal law enforcement. And I was thinking FBI, U.S. Marshals, something along those lines. I wasn't really sure. But in the meantime, while I was in school, I managed to apply and obtain a position with the Morris County Juvenile Detention Center. So I was a juvenile detention officer, which it was a great experience. But basically, when you work in a jail, you're waking up every single day and going to jail. And when you deal with
My cousin actually just retired from Monmouth County. He told me a long
yeah,
time ago. I'm just another one of them. He goes, I'm doing 25 to life. Just I get to go home and sleep with my wife. So
yeah, you get your conjugal visits by going home. You get your furlough every night. You get a furlough and get to go home. But it's interesting because the juvenile uh, facility versus the adult, and I would train at the adult facility every now and then, because I ended up as a sergeant when I was I obtained the rank of sergeant when I was there, and I started the juvenile detention center's gang unit. I actually put their gang unit together because I would train at the adult facility, and there was a corporal there, Edwin Santana, who he's renowned throughout the country when it comes to gang awareness. And he kind of took me under his wing and started teaching me and training me. And then I started realizing that there was some clues that we were missing in the juvenile facility when it came to gang awareness. So I was able to put that program together for us in Morris County at the time. And so that was my whole focus. That's all I wanted to do. But I knew then that staying in the corrections really wasn't what I wanted to do. So I was taking the police tests. I would take the police tests as they came along. And I didn't take any classes or anything. I didn't even know at the time that there were classes. I didn't know how that worked. I didn't know how the civil service world really worked when it came to that sort of thing. And I would do okay on the exams. I would just do well enough to be called by like state corrections and that sort of thing, but never good enough on the test to, because it is very competitive, and never do well enough on the test to get a municipal job. So so I was doing that, and I was doing the reserves at the same time, and college. And then 9/11 happens. 9/11 happens, and we are, like I said, right across the Hudson River. So it felt like we were basically, it's like being right in New York City.
yeah.
And so when that happened, I was on the phone with my wife. She was working in Sea Caucus, and her office building had a perfect view of what was going on. And I was actually on the phone with her when the second plane hit, and we knew exactly what it was at that time, that that this wasn't an accident. So we raced to go pick up our daughter at school, and I remember just the cloud of smoke, the plume of smoke that was kind of slowly heading towards our area. And then shortly after that, I got a phone call from my reserve station, and they were like, you know what, we're activating everybody to report tomorrow for duty, until further notice. So yeah, that it was an interesting time. And like I said, I wasn't sure what I was going to do long term. And at the time, we were trying to look at either shifting into federal law enforcement or making the Marine Corps an actual career. And I was looking to switch my MOS into a military intel position with the hopes of gaining some military intelligence experience and then eventually using that for federal law enforcement. But interesting that we sat down with the career planner. My wife was pregnant; she had a big belly, and we're sitting in front of the career planner, and he looks at her and says, "He may not be around for the birth of your son, but we have support groups that can help you along the process." And she turns and looks at me, and I'm looking at him like, "What the hell are you doing? Like, your job is to keep me and make me re-enlist, right? And now you're doing the opposite." And she looks at me, she goes, "We're done. Let's go." And thinking back on it now,
Like,
he definitely threw me a lifeline. Yeah, I mean, he definitely threw me a lifeline, and I thank him. I'm so appreciative of that moment because of everything that I was able to do after. And who knows what would have happened. I know that our unit was deployed and they went out there, and who knows what would have happened. I probably wouldn't have seen my son born, he's now a junior in college, and and we have more kids now. We have a larger family, but everything happens for a reason.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's. When you said you were a Marine reservist and then you wanted to go into intel full time, that's in 2001 that was a busy topic.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But I've always felt like I wanted to be involved in. I wanted to be in the shit, so to speak, right? I always wanted to be involved in something that was complex, that required some.
If I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been all in. I never half-assed anything. Anything that I've ever done, I've always kind of just jumped in both feet, and do my best to be all in. And my wife knew that was my personality, so I think that was part of her hesitation and concern was that knowing my husband, he's not gonna take the safe route. He's gonna try to get himself involved in something that's dangerous. So and that's it. And so that's it. I was done with the reserves. I signed out in 2002. I ended my enlistment, and I remained as a juvenile detention officer. And again, I was still taking the law enforcement exams. Actually, I interviewed with the prosecutor's office, and I had 3 interviews with the prosecutor's office, and ended up turning it down because I ended up doing well on the fire exam, well enough to get hired on that. And that's where my life completely changed. Becoming a firefighter, which I never even thought ever that I was going to do that.
I was just going to ask, you're sergeant in the corrections, you're taking law enforcement, you want to go, with the mindset of you wanted to go federal law enforcement. Mm-hmm. What even made you take the fire exam? Just the civil service
I wanted to
exam,
get out of jail. I wanted to get out of jail. So the test came up. Yeah, the test came up. It was either you take this test and use this as an opportunity to get out, and then at least you're in the pension system at this time, because in the juvenile detention you're in PERS, not in the PFRS. So you're in the you're in the public employee. Yeah, you're in the public employee retirement system, which isn't the same as the police fire, police and fire retirement system. So it's a different pension system. So the plan was that if I do well enough on the fire exam, right now at least I'm into the pension and I start investing my time into the pension system. And then when if a law enforcement opportunity presents itself, then I'll switch over. And that was the plan. Yeah. And in fact, 2 days before I got sworn into to North Hudson Regional Fire and Rescue, I took the police test, and that was still my plan. And I went into the fire academy with that in mind, and that was my plan until, and I don't know exactly when it changed and when it shifted, but I think where it started to change for me was the very first time that we were running a training session in the fire academy, and we were going on air for the first time. And we were gonna force entry, and the Bergen County Fire Academy, it's a controlled environment just like every other fire academy. You're not gonna get hurt, you're not gonna get killed. But for me at the time, not having any fire experience whatsoever, not even understanding what the fire service was all about, I was scared, man. I was like, all right, I'm gonna go on air. I'm all buttoned up, right? Got my hood, everything's ready to go. I'm gonna go on air. We're gonna force entry into this door. We're gonna stretch this line. I don't know where we're gonna go, but we're gonna have to perform a search off the hand line, find the fire, knock the fire down. Now we know it's a controlled environment. It's not a Class A burn. It's propane, right? But for me at the time, I was like, man, what if I panic? What if I'm claustrophobic and I don't know it? What if I rip my mask off? And so I remember that my heart was racing, and me and whoever it was that was my partner at the time, we started our evolution, and we completed it. And when we came out and we took our masks off and everything, I was like, holy shit, that was awesome. I'm like, that's fucking great. I want to do it again. I was like, wow, this just knowing that there was a fear and you didn't know how you were going to react, and that you were able to overcome that fear and complete the obstacle, complete the evolution, to me was an adrenaline rush. And then the same thing happened, like, when we were doing the peak roof prop, where, you raise the ground ladder, you ascend the ground ladder, they pass off the roof ladder, you engage the hooks, place the hooks over the ridge, and then you transfer from that ground ladder. And we didn't use harnesses and ropes at that time. If you were going to fall, you were going to fall. Right. And I remember like being up there and the wind is blowing, and I'm like, holy shit, this is where I'm going to die. And next thing you know, the evolution is complete. Right. I did it. And so I said, I love it. And I just fell in love with it. And then once we graduated the fire academy, I was working in West New York. My first assignment was Squad 10 in West New York, very busy engine company. And
good assignment.
And the captain that I had with me was very salty captain Ballister. He was went above and beyond to make sure that his guys were trained, especially when it came to probies, and kind of took me under his wing, and every opportunity that we had to train, we did. And we caught a lot of work. We caught a lot of fires within my first probie year. It was during that probie year that I received my certification from Union City Police Department, and I came out number 3 on their police list. And I was living in Union City on 17th Street, and I remember getting that certification, and I opened it up and I said to myself, I completely forgot that I even took this police test. I sat down with my wife and I said, babe, look. And she starts laughing, and she goes, well, what are you going to do? And I go, I got the best job in the world. This is like, I don't even want this job. And so much so that I didn't even respond. And I should have, right, out of courtesy, I should have responded to the certification and just let them know that that I don't want the position, but I didn't. And they actually came knocking on my door. A police detective came knocking on my door, because what they do, if you're number 3 and they're going to hire, 10 guys or something like that, they're going to come looking for you, because they
got to get around it.
Well, and they want to. They're thinking maybe this guy really doesn't live there, because you get that where somebody wants to get a job in that town and they fake an address, or they don't really live there. So they do their due diligence to investigate that, and they did. And my doorbell rings. I go downstairs. I open up the door, and there's this cop, this sergeant. He goes, "Hey, are you Alider Pratts?" I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, we're looking into the certification letter for the job that we sent." And I was like, I was wearing a fire department T-shirt, a North Hudson shirt. He looks at my shirt, and I go, "Oh, I'm sorry, I completely forgot to respond." I said, I'm on a job with North Hudson. He goes, "Oh man, congratulations, you got the better job. Good for you." And that's how the conversation was, and we've had a lot of, and I took a huge pay cut, man. I took a big pay cut.
Oh, sure.
Like big pay cut, being a sergeant, and I pretty much made my own overtime, because I would organize all the every time we had a new intake of juveniles, I would look through their paperwork to see if there's any gang affiliations and that sort of thing. We take pictures, create a database. So when I would do that, I would pretty much name my own overtime. So I was killing it, but I took a huge pay cut, and so much so that what I had to do was I ended up cashing out whatever I had in the pension. I took a big hit, right? Because like I said before, it was not the police pension, it was public employees. I took a big hit on that, and I used that money to keep us above water, to just pay bills and to get us through that first probationary year, where we were making, a lot less than what I was making then. But it obviously turned out to be the right career move at the end.
Oh, absolutely. I've never met a cop that didn't wish they became a fireman.
Yeah, especially now, it's a tough job. I mean, it's a very, very tough job. I mean, it's always been a difficult job, but just in today's climate, It is a difficult, unfortunately,
Oh, absolutely.
thankless job to be a law enforcement officer. But it's funny, I'm the department's law enforcement liaison, so I work closely with the SWAT teams and the ESUs and with the active shooter stuff. So, and I have friends of mine that knew me before, like when I was going the law enforcement route, and they look at me, they're like, "Man, if they can give you a gun, if you can do both, and you can have a gun, you'd be." I'm like, "I'd be in heaven, man. I would totally do both jobs, But yeah, it's all good, man. This career, and I admire the guys that I hear about that grew up chasing the fire engines, and their parents were on the job or volunteers, and they grew up wanting this job and they were able to do it, whether it's career or volunteer. I admire that, and I give them a lot of respect. Me on the other hand, it wasn't where it's something that I wanted to do, but it's something that I fell in love with. It found me, and again, like I said before, I was just all in, man. I was just going to give it everything I had, because it's a boomerang effect. I think whatever you put into this job, you're going to get back, and if you're going to just show up to work, do the bare minimum, that's what you're going to get back. That's going to be your return, right? So in order for my return on investment to be huge, it's got to be, I got to put in the work, and that's just my mindset and my mentality when it comes to this job.
Absolutely. With anything, I mean, it's if you're gonna half-ass it, don't do it.
Right, 100%. Yeah.
So now tell me about some of the guys you came on the job with, some of the jobs you caught, early on in your career as a fireman, as a probationary. Get into some of that.
Yeah,
and actually tell us about the department, because that part wasn't on the recording.
Yeah. So North Hudson, it's interesting. 1999, North Hudson Regional Fire and Rescue became the first regional fire department in the country. I believe in the country, definitely in the state of New Jersey or in the tri-state area for that matter. North Hudson area covers Guttenberg, North Bergen, Union City, Weehawken, and West New York, the 5 cities, 3 of which are the most densely populated cities in the country. Fun fact, North Bergen is actually the second hilliest town or city in the country outside of San Francisco. The area is right along or covers the Hudson River. So we cover the Hudson River as far up, I believe, as Nyack, all the way down to Monmouth County, actually, because North Hudson's fireboat is part of what's called the New Jersey Fireboat Task Force, which I also happen to be a member of that task force as well, which falls under special operations. So that whole area was they decided to regionalize, so that instead of having all these small urban cities have a small responsive apparatus and manpower and rely heavily on mutual aid, you had a much larger, more robust response of apparatus and personnel responding, to any given, whether it was an alarm activation or fire or whatever the case is, right? As I mentioned, it's densely populated. I think at current census puts us at about 210,000 residents in the area. Very urban. Like I said before, we're right across the Hudson River to New York City. So anybody that drives into New York City and takes the Lincoln Tunnel, you drive through North Bergen, you drive through Union City, and you drive through Weehawken just to get to the Lincoln Tunnel if you're coming off the New Jersey Turnpike, right? And those are the areas that we cover. It's very urban, tenement buildings, ordinary tenement type 3 buildings. We have private dwellings, high rises. The whole waterfront has exploded. It's like a whole new city. Just the whole waterfront alone is another city in of itself. High rise buildings. You have your massive lightweight wood frame, complex buildings. We have hospitals, we have schools, we have taxpayers. If you drive up and down Bergen Line Avenue, which is one of the longest, most continuous stretches of like restaurants and shops and stores and what have you, you have your mixed occupancy dwellings where you have your businesses on the first floor and 2 to 3, stories of residential above. as I mentioned, we have all the major highways. You know, anytime you go into New York City, you're going to drive through our area. So a little bit of everything. I think and that's it. What's good about that is that it gives us a lot of experience with many different types of structure fires, so different construction types and occupancy types. So I think it's great. It's a great place to work. And we work alongside FDNY and the Port Authority when we respond to fires in the Lincoln Tunnel. Coast Guard and FDNY when we respond to fires or any incidents on the Hudson River. North Hudson was left out of the Miracle on the Hudson movie, but we were there. We have all the pictures and we have firefighters that were there along with the Weehawken Waterway. It is literally right across where our headquarters building is, right in that general area. So, you know, we definitely are a unique, not unique, but because we have a little bit of everything.
You can say unique. Absolutely.
Yeah, you know, it is. Yeah. So if you look at geographically, it's probably a little bit smaller than Jersey City, who's our mutual aid partner to the south. But as far as residents go, I mean, it's densely populated, you know, and
absolutely.
And yeah,
like you said,
sure.
3 of the municipalities are in the top 5 in the world. You know, and what's the whole jurisdiction? I don't even think. Are you guys 10 square miles even?
Not even.
Almost
not even. I don't have
people.
the number of how many square miles we are, but it's not even 10 square miles.
And almost 250,000 people. You know,
correct.
That's a lot of people. The only thing you guys don't have is an airport.
No, but like I said, I guess it's a good idea to park the a commercial airliner in the Hudson River. So, bless you.
Excuse me.
With the exception of the plane landing in the Hudson River, no, we don't have any planes landing.
Yeah.
We have we have 10 engines. We have our one squad company we have multiple squad companies, but one that's a part of our special operations. We have a rescue truck, which is our frontline rescue truck. We have a heavy rescue truck that is part of the USAR, the UASI Metro USAR strike team. We have 3 fire boats. We have a hazmat decon unit, 4 ladder trucks, 3 of which are tillers, and 1 is a ladder tower. A safety officer who rides with a communications aide, who also serves as an accountability officer. 3 battalion chiefs, or 3 battalion chiefs on duty, riding the city. 1 deputy chief, which is the tour commander, which I'm the tour commander for the 3rd division. We have 4 different divisions or platoons. And then obviously we have our headquarters staff, and we have 2 unions, our firefighters union and our fire officers union. And like I said before, we cover 5 cities, so there's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of politics involved with dealing with, different, the mayors and the politicians.
Politics in New Jersey?
So I heard that there's a class somewhere in the country that focuses on the politics of Hudson County specifically.
Oh my God.
But it's definitely interesting. Yeah, definitely interesting.
There's no political issues in the state of New Jersey.
Yeah.
So all right. So let's get into your career and fires, jobs you've gone to, trainings you've taken. Like you said.
Like we've had a little bit of everything. So as far as, fires go, without getting into like war stories and that sort of thing. I mean, I remember one of my very first fires as a probationary firefighter, where, this is probably my first job as a probie, and I was with that captain.
I was going to ask, do you remember your first fire?
This was my first fire. This was the first one I can remember anyway. And it was a fire in North Bergen, and we were the second due engine to arrive on the scene. The first engine started to stretch. It was a 2.5-story wood frame, unattached with a peak roof. The peak was pretty much a walkable peak. So I know that the ladder company was on the roof. And when we got there, the first engine company had made a stretch, and it was stretching into the front door. It was a fire on the 2nd floor. When we get there, the captain tells me to grab a line, and we advance the line down the driveway on the the Bravo side of the building, and there was an entrance there that led directly up to the second floor. So that entrance on the Delta side would either take you into the basement. And again, this is this is originally designed as a private dwelling, but because of the amount of people that we have there, right? They've cut it up and now it's separate apartments, right? But remember, I'm a probie. I probably have maybe not even a week on the job, and I'm like, this is crazy. It's a lot of fire, a lot of smoke, right? For me, in my mind, right at the time, right, this is worst case scenario, right? Now you think back on it, it's a bread and butter job. It's venting out. It's no big deal, right? So we stretch a line into the entrance on the Bravo side, and I'm standing behind the captain, and he grabs and puts me in front of him. And he's pushing me. Now he's kind of like pushing me up the stairs. And I think, thinking back on it, I might have been leaning back a little bit, like trying to like push back, like slow down, you know. And I just remember we were scotted up and we were masked up, and I had the line, and it was a dry line that we were stretching up the stairs. And then it started getting pretty smoky and got black. I remember, sheetrock coming down and stuff falling on top of us. And I'm thinking, how does this captain know where we are going? Like, I'm going to die today. This is what I'm thinking. And again, it's not a major fire. This is a basic bread and butter job, but to a probie for his first job, for me anyway, right? I'm not going to sit here and say that I was, I admit it. I was scared, right? I was like, I didn't know what the hell was happening. So he's telling me what to do. He's telling, open up the line, hit it here, hit it there. And unbeknownst to me, he's behind me, but he's with a thermal camera. He's looking at where the fire is, and he's telling me where to hit it, And so, we start hitting fire, and then now we're kind of making our way into the apartment, making our way towards what I know now to be the Charlie side of the apartment on the second floor. And you hear windows breaking, you hear the saws, you hear this, that, and the other. All of a sudden, I feel like this is probably like the biggest apartment that I've ever been in. This is like a huge place, right? But as soon as the smoke lifts and you kind of see what's going on, you're like, oh, this is just a small apartment. This is nothing, not a big deal. And then after that, the feeling that I had was like, man, this really is a great freaking job, man. This was awesome. But again, not a major incident, not a major fire, but for a young
firefighter.
Yeah, and anyone that's a company officer that has a probie with him or her for the first time, that's what they're thinking, right? To you, it's like a bread and butter job, and you know exactly what needs to get done.
But I got to get this kid at home.
That's right, and all you need to do as a probie is know that, trust in your company officer and follow instructions and follow directions. Don't ask questions. Just do what the hell you're told to do, and you'll be fine.
Absolutely.
But as a company officer, you have to know your job, right? You have to understand that this kid has no idea what's going on. You have to hold their hand. And so, that's kind of like a lesson that I took from him, with the many fires that we went to, is how to be that company officer and how to, mentor and guide, new firefighters through this process of in the fire service, and that's something that kind of, stuck out in my head. And the same thing happened when I as my training progressed and I started doing truck work. And usually you have to get signed off on an engine. Once you get signed off on engine company operations, and then you get signed off as a chauffeur, and you can pump, right? And believe it or not, we try to get that done pretty early on in your career, because it makes it easier manpower wise to be able to move guys around and detail guys as you need them if they're certified to do everything. So we kind of move that process along pretty quickly. It's not to say that it's not that it's rushed, or it's not like, we're just signing guys off no matter what. I mean, we make it a point to really make sure that our firefighters are trained. But, at some point you start transitioning from the engine to doing truck work. And when I got on the truck, I was like, man, I thought engine company work was fun. This is the shit here. Like, this is what I want to do, and I'm a small guy, man. I don't have that traditional, sometimes we hire new firefighters and you see a guy, he's like 6 something, and you're like, man, that's a big dude. He's got his own truck. Yeah, I'm not a size. That wasn't my size, but I loved being above the fire. I loved being on the roof, cutting the hole. I mean, that's the stuff That's the stuff. And it's not that I don't want to use the word freelancing, but like on an engine, you're on the line and you're married to that line. On the ladder company, you're moving around, and you're not freelancing, but there's more freedom to move around because there's work that's got to get done inside the building or on the roof. So that was something to me that just I fell in love with right away.
So is that a like a standard progression for North Hudson? You come out of the academy, you do some time on the engine company, and then you graduate essentially to the truck. Like is that a normal progression?
Ideally, yes, but it all depends on how many firefighters we hire, and because if depending on how many firefighters we hire and the more you need, we may have to put a probie on a truck. We try not to, but we may have to put a probie on a truck as an extra piece so we can get him or her trained. But ideally, we would try to get them on an engine so that they can appreciate the importance of getting that line in operation, right? Because that's the most important function on the fire ground is getting water on the fire, getting that line in operation, right? And we're not going to vent until we do that. Right. So that's kind of like the progression for the most part. But we do a little bit of getting guys trained on an engine, getting guys trained on the Marine unit as well. So we try to get our firefighters, qualified on everything that we can, throughout the entire department so that they can be versatile and move them around to wherever they need to go.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And for me at the time, we didn't have that requirement when I was a probie to get guys trained on the Marine unit. But what I kind of started doing was making my way or expressing my interest on as far as special operations, because I knew that the guys that worked on Squad 1, Rescue 1, Ladder 3, Ladder 4, like these are the companies that are part of the SOC units. These are the SOC unit companies. And I knew that I wanted to be a part of that, and like I said before, I was always looking for that thing, right? That drew me to, and that was always something that I was drawn towards. So pretty early on in my career, I was lucky enough to be able to get some experience on Squad 1. And when you work on Squad 1, you get to train with the rescue, right? If you're a Squad 1 guy, you're the backup to the rescue, like automatically. So I was able to get some of that work done, and I kind of fell in love with that. And I was able to get picked to go and attend the USAR classes that they were running. That we, as part of the UASI Metro Urban Strike Team or USAR Strike Team Committee, you go to these training sessions where we do building collapse. So you go to structural collapse, and it's FEMA level structural collapse, confined space, high angle. Trench rescue. So all these things that are part of special operations, you go to these classes. And I was lucky enough to be able to get picked early on in my career to take these classes. And I knew then as a firefighter that this is what I want to do. Right. And so that kind of is what really got me moving in that direction. And as I progressed through the ranks, which I'm sure we'll get into, I always made it a point to try to be on one of these companies or express my interest to always be on one of the busiest companies, right? I always wanted to be on a busy company because I think experience is hugely important. And I wanted to stay within that task force so that eventually I can, become a leader within these special operations unit companies.
Okay. I got you. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense when you follow, your early career. You had that mindset of OCS, and then you wanted military intelligence, and you were young in the corrections field and got up, bumped up to sergeant, but still had aspirations much larger than where you were. Makes sense. I say it.
Yeah, and and I don't think that there was ever a roadmap or a plan that I had that I said I want to do X, Y, and Z. It was kind of like the way things presented themselves at the time, and like I said, I would be all in whatever it was that I was doing. For me, that was just like, what, I'm grateful that I have this opportunity to have this career, right? It's a privilege. And I always thought about it that way, right? This is not my right. This is nothing's. No one owes me anything, right? If anything, I owe everything to the fire service, right? Especially this being a career that I found. It wasn't something that I always wanted, but then once I found it, I realized that this is the shit. This is what I want to do, right? And as I became eligible for the promotional exam, my first promotional exam to captain, I still had it in the back of my mind that no matter what, I want to be on the busiest companies. I want to make my way to special operations, and that's kind of like what I want to do. And that was always in the back of my mind without even realizing that it was actually a plan. Right. So it was never, it would be great for me to say, yeah, this is what I wanted to do. And this was my plan. And I made it happen and I executed on that. But it wasn't that way. It was just, this is what chose me. And I keep saying that I really think that this is the way it worked out, because this is the way it was meant to be. Right. So,
Absolutely.
So as I got to the point where, and I was barely eligible to take the promotional exam, civil service rules, you have to have 3 years on to be able to take the company officer exam. And I had 3 years by like 10 days, barely 10 days. So I barely had enough seniority to even take this test, but I did. And I put in a lot of time and effort in reading, and I realized that, reading the books that are required for the promotional exam, started helping me to get better at my job, because I started, realizing, understanding building construction, fire tactics and behavior, fire spread, all these things, that because it's a science, and so I started kind of diving into these things, and I feel that, it definitely made me a better firefighter, because these are the things I was kind of looking out for on the fire ground as well. The things that I read, I wanted to apply them, on the street. But it was important for me to not, some guys have done it in the past where they're going to take a promotional exam and they ask for a transfer to like a slow company.
So
they ask for a transfer to a slow company so that they could study more. And for me, it was like the opposite. Like I wanted to stay at the busiest companies, and I always was, because that way, whatever I'm reading, I'm applying on the fire ground, right? I can see it in action. And, I know that if I was lucky enough to get promoted early on in my career, I have a lot to prove, and if I tell somebody that we're going to stretch a line into this basement, right, and it looks hairy, it looks bad, or if I say, you know what, we're going to climb this ladder and we're going to get on this roof and we're going to cut a trench, or whatever the case is, right, or we got a VES, in the rear, I want to know that I've done it. I want to know that it's not just something that I read in a book, because, you can score really well on a promotional exam and get promoted. It doesn't mean that you're a firefighter. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
You just, you just happen to test well. It doesn't mean that you're good at your job. So for me, it was always important to marry both, the test world and real life.
Oh, absolutely. Without a doubt. I mean, it's worked for you. But what's the saying? Tell me and I hear it. Show me and I'll learn. Let me do it, and and master it, or something like that. Forgive me for
for sure. No. But yeah, I know exactly where you're going with this, and that's the truth in everything. But I think it's extra important in the jobs that we do, because what we do and what we don't do has very serious consequences. And if we,
absolutely,
it's not about us, right? It's not an office job where if we mess up, the forecasted figures for next month are off a little bit, right? This is like, if you mess up, somebody could die, right? If you mess up, somebody's losing their property, somebody's can be injured, whether 100%. It's a civilian or a firefighter. So the consequences are extreme. So we have to. It's important for me as an officer, right, in every step of my rising through the ranks. It's always been important to me to know myself, right? Know what my capabilities are, right? Know how to work on those strengths and weaknesses to be able to get myself to a point where I can bring my firefighters up with me, right? So like my first assignment, as one of my first assignments as a captain, I was assigned very senior guys that helped me along the process. Eventually I went from being an engine 4 captain in Union City, which was at the time the second busiest engine company. And I was able to go back to squad 1, right, where I started, as a captain on a different shift. Because usually when you get promoted, you move companies and you move shifts, and it just makes the transition into a leadership position a little bit easier. But absolutely. I was able to get back to squad 1. And then eventually I went to ladder 3 in West New York. And when I went to the truck, now I've worked the truck as a firefighter. I was in a truckman, right? I've worked the truck and I can do truck work. I've done it. I've detailed overtime. I've worked on a truck, had fires on the truck, but I wasn't a truck guy, right? Like you're a truckman, you got to spend some time in the truck, right? So
I've heard
when I
a
went
lot
to
of
that,
people say that
yeah,
over
and I
time.
believe it
I've
to be
worked on the
true.
truck. I've gone to the fire on a ladder truck, but I've never really been a truckie. And
Right, right, yeah, and it's the
and
truth.
now
And I
you get thrown
remember,
into being the boss of that, and you got to be hoping you get some senior guys that know truck work.
yeah, one of my guys was actually I got hired with him. We were hired together. One of the guys that was on that ladder company, Patty Cowan, we were hired together, and so we had the same seniority. It wasn't like he was a senior guy, but he was a truckman. He was a truckie. This guy, right? He was on a truck pretty much his whole career. So when I went to that company, I went to him. I said, Patty, you got to listen. Every single day, we're going to go out. We're going to train morning, noon, and night. We're going to be out there all day. I need you to show me the truck. Show me the overrides. Let's place the aerial. Let's do this. Let's do that. Right. I want to know everything about this truck. And we did. And we had a crew that was, man, we worked so well together. Like sometimes you hear of these guys where they complain they don't want to go training, this, that, and the other. Oh, it's lunchtime, 12 o'clock. We have to eat by 12. We have to have dinner by 6. And then, that's traditional in the firehouse, right? It's like a golden rule. You got to eat by 12. Guys want to take a nap after, this, that, and the other. And that wasn't the case with us. It was like we were all young guys, right? Aggressive dudes that wanted to be the best truck, right? We wanted to be the best at what we did. And so it was a perfect combination. And we were out there all the time, man, training. Johnny Worth was a probie that I had on squad 1 that I brought over with me to the truck. And we were out all the time training, man. It was, and then we ended up getting a brand new ladder tower. And it was like, man, it was like Christmas every single day we went into work, and it was like Christmas, man. We were like, let's see what this thing could do. What can it do? Right? Anybody that knows our area, we have very, very tight streets. Those streets are ridiculously tight. Yeah, it's tough to drive a car through some of these streets, let alone a fire apparatus or a ladder tower, right? So we would pre-plan all day and all night and figure out where are we going to have issues, right? In order to get to this address, we might have to go 2 blocks out of our way so we could find a double wide street, right? A 2-way street for us to be able to take that street instead of taking, 37th Street or something like that. We might have to go to 43rd and take 43rd down Bergenline Avenue so we can make make a right or make a left, whatever the case is, right? So these are things that we did, and because we were all on the same page, and because I didn't go in there saying, look, I'm the captain, I know everything, right? You follow me, and this is how we're going to do it. It was more like, listen, you're on the truck. I need you to show me what you know, and together we're gonna become the best ladder crew, right, on the department. And that was the plan. And so I always approached everything in that manner.
And that's how you got it. I mean, there's some people that even with that mentality and approach, it's not gonna click and stick in. But fortunately, it sounds like you had a stellar crew that was looking for a leader, and the gel and the mold was there and came together.
Yeah, and I mean, they were leaders in their own right, so it doesn't matter if you're a company officer, the senior guy, or the junior guy, right? It's everybody in their own right should be looking to have a leadership role, and then whoever that boss is should be looking to train those guys up and develop them into leaders. Absolutely. Because what good are you as a leader if you're not going to develop? Like, I wanted everyone around me to get promoted at some point, right? So we would sit down even on the firehouse kitchen table. Like, if we weren't out physically training, we would be on the firehouse kitchen table after dinner and going over scenarios, right? Studying, for the promotional exams, helping these guys, because I knew that they were going to take their exams. And I had all my study material from when I was studying on my own. We would sit down and go over things, right? This is what they're looking for. This is what the test assessors are looking for. This is how you should sound. This is the information that you want to be able to regurgitate and make that part of your presentation. So we always did that, and for me,
and not only that, that helps you, the captain, that helps you preparing them for the captain's position, helps you promote, set your mind on the next step.
Right. And so I knew I
That
was going
helps
to
you
end up
step
taking the
for
battalion
battalion.
chief's exam. Right. I knew I was going to take the battalion chief's exam, but when I was eligible for my first test, I didn't study for it because I was having so much fun on the truck. It's like being a boss, being a captain is the best job because you have that leadership role, but you're going in, you're fighting fires, you're getting down and dirty, right? So for me, that was like the best job as far as like fun goes. To me, that's still the best job that there is being a captain, right? You're in there with the guys, right? For departments that have lieutenants, and for us, we don't have lieutenants of first rank as captain, but you're in there. You're one of the guys fighting fires, And for me, I was having so much fun that I didn't want to let that go. And I had such a great crew that, I said, you know what, I'm going to take the test because I don't believe in passing up any promotional exam. I think that the best practice for a promotional exam is taking the test. So even if you don't want to promote and you're not ready and you don't want it, I strongly suggest that you take the test anyway. It's great experience. So that's what I did. I took the test. And as anybody that doesn't know, with the civil service, it's a process, right? You take the promotional exam, and even if you score number one on the test, you're probably not going to get promoted for a year. And that's best case scenario, 3 years. And that's best case scenario if that department is going to be promoting, right? So it's a process. So by the time though that, right, correct. So by the time that the list came out and the 3 years came around, and now they're into like the fourth year, fifth year of promoting. Now I'm getting the itch, and I'm like, man, I should have studied. I should have studied. I think now I'm ready. And I ended up dying number 2 on the list. So they got real close. Like I didn't study, but I did well enough because I think the previous exam was kind of still fresh in my head. And because, like you said, going over the stuff and helping my guys with their promotional exam helped me along as well. And so now the list dies, and I die number 2 on the list. And I'm like, man, I should have put just a little bit of effort into this thing, and I probably would have gotten promoted. So the next time
How many
around,
got made off that list? Do you remember?
For battalion, it was a handful of guys. I don't remember how many. I think I came out on that list maybe number 6 or 7 or something like that. So they must have promoted 5 guys, 4 or 5 guys, whatever it was. It wasn't a lot. Like once you start moving up the ranks, we don't really promote that many battalion chiefs, and really don't promote that many deputy chiefs. As you move up, it's less and less. And captains, when my list, I got promoted off my captain's test on the first round. And they went into maybe like 40s or something like that. They promoted a lot of guys. Yeah, because during that time we had a mass exodus. This was the Christie administration. He got rid of he started up the pension payments and the healthcare and this, that, and the other. And everybody just said, I'm out. I'm done. So anybody that had the time left. And so that opened up the doors for a lot of younger guys to get promoted. In fact, when I got promoted, I was in my 5th year as a firefighter. And there were firefighters in North Hudson that I hadn't even met yet. And when the list came out, they were like, who the hell is Pratts? Who's this guy? He's going to be a captain. We don't even know who the hell he is. So it was definitely an interesting time. But when that next battalion chief test, the second one came around, then I studied, and that's the one I got promoted off of on that one. But what was good about it was that by the time I promoted to battalion, I had been on the truck as a captain. I had been on the engine. I had been on the squad. I had been on the rescue. I had been, at special operations. I've had the majority of. I had all of the classes that the UASI Metro Urban Strike Team provided. Right, I've taken all these classes, and I had a lot of experience by that time with special operations, with fireground operations, special operations, training. And when I got promoted, the deputy chief that was in charge of, and it's always been a deputy chief position for special operations, him and Chief Montagne approached me and said, would you like to be the chief of special operations, as a battalion chief, where, that chief was looking to kind of pull back. He put his work in. He did it for a long time. He did an excellent job as a special operations chief. But he was, it was time for him to do something different. He wanted to do something different. So I said, yeah, man, I would love to be the chief of special operations under 2 conditions. Number 1, the minute that a line position opens up, I'm out. Like, there's no way I'm going to stay as a headquarters. I'm not going to stay working at headquarters. I'll do it, and I'll do the extra work. Put me on 24/72s, put me out on the street, and I'll still do the special operation stuff. And then number two was that when and if I move up the ranks to the next rank, I want to still, stay doing special operations. And I'm like, yeah, well, that's what we had in mind, and that's why we approached you on it. And I did, and it's been great. It's just been a great experience to be able to, take the special operations from what it was, which it was great to begin with, and then help it along and with new technology and new training and new things that are coming up. I mean, now we're at the point where the Marine unit falls under special operations. Hazmat Decon falls under special operations, and now a active shooter rescue task force, right, falls under special operations. So there's a lot of moving parts, when it comes to, the North Hudson Special Operations Command, right, our SOC unit. There's a lot of moving parts when it comes to it, and it keeps me motivated. It keeps me motivated.
Oh, absolutely. Keeps you fresh.
And it's just something that I love. Yeah, absolutely.
Idle hands are the devil's play toy.
Yeah, that's the truth, man. That's the truth.
So now, can you get into a little bit again for people that may be listening from around the country and aren't familiar with the UASC Metro Task Force?
Yeah, so it was born after 9/11, right? So you had a situation 9/11, a major incident where requires the response of that home jurisdiction is not going to be able to handle like a major response, right? So when it comes to terrorism and man-made and natural disasters, the best way to tackle these incidents is to have a plan in place and have a written agreement between several agencies that are going to work together and pool their resources and be able to mitigate any type of major incident. So there was federal funding that was allocated, and I don't know the exact history, so I'm paraphrasing everything here. But there was money that was allocated and made available for these regions throughout the country that are heavy urban regions that are quote unquote a terroristic target, so to speak, right? So the UASI is the Urban Area Security Initiative Program. And there's different things that fall under the UASI. There's a CBRN division of UASI, but we're the USAR, Urban Search and Rescue Division of USAR. So basically 7 counties of northern New Jersey, and I'll say it alphabetically just so that no one feels left out. Bergen is because if I say Hudson or if I say North Hudson first, and I'm pretty much right. So Bergen, Essex, Hudson, Middlesex, Morris, Passaic, and Union County. Right. So you have these counties that are make up the UASI's Metro USAR strike team, and the towns that are part of that are Bayonne. Right. So you got Bayonne Fire Department, Elizabeth, Hackensack, and Hoboken. Jersey City, Middlesex, Milburn, and Morristown get together on one piece of apparatus to on their response. Newark, North Hudson Regional, Patterson, and also the Port Authority Police ESU. Right, so all these agencies have heavy rescue trucks in their jurisdiction that are designated to be able to respond or deploy to any major incident within those counties, right? Okay. So you have a building collapse and it doesn't have to be, it could be in a volunteer town, right? So we had, not too long ago, we had a building collapse in East Rutherford, right? Bergen County, East Rutherford. And there was a partial building collapse with a trapped worker. It's not one of these cities where it's a career department, but they were able to call a UASI deployment, and we were able to bring all of our resources there and essentially affect the rescue, right? So anywhere within New Jersey, you have a major incident, building collapse with trapped or possibly trapped victims or occupants, then we have the capabilities, we have the manpower, we have the equipment, we have the training to be able to respond to those towns and work within the unified command and essentially be the incident commander's subject matter expert in that situation, so that we can use our resources to make the rescue. in addition to those heavy rescue trucks, we have 4 shoring unit lumber trucks, right, where you have Elizabeth, Hackensack, North Hudson, and Milburn. Also, in addition to that heavy rescue unit, that's a UASI truck. Also have a shoring unit with lumber and equipment. We could basically build a house, right? So, so all these, all this equipment and all this manpower, and so every piece of apparatus that's responding, every truck, every heavy rescue truck is pretty much outfitted the same exact way, right? The compartments might differ a little bit, but we all have the same exact equipment. So when we buy, Paratech trucks, or when we buy Arizona Vortex, whatever the case is, we buy one for every single town that's part of that UASI. So not times 6, times 11. Right, because these are the amount of trucks. It's not just per county; it's per department. So we'll buy it for every single piece of apparatus, so that whether you have a full response or a partial response, you can have a car or truck into a building, and you may not need a full response. You might need just maybe your nearest USAR unit, right? Depending on where it is. So like if Seahawk has something, they might request a partial response, and you'll get like Hackensack and North Hudson, right? And when we get there as the incident commanders, as part of as a North Hudson Special Operations Chief, I'm also on the UASI's Metro Urban Strike Team Committee incident command staff. Right. So as part of one of these members, when we arrive on a scene, we make a determination as to whether or not we need more resources, whether it should be a full response or whatever the case is. And we make that determination, when we get there. But, and it's great because we know who we're getting. We run annual drills, and the annual drills that we run, we usually do it so that, and whoever's drilling during that time period is usually that same shift that works together. So you have all the familiar faces. We're all trained to the same level. We make sure all of our guys are trained to the same level. And when we run these drills, we look to, certain KSAs that we're looking for, the certain things that we're looking for, benchmarks that we're looking for these units to meet. But more importantly, we're looking to identify some gaps, strengths, and weaknesses so that we can determine what type of training. Right. What we may have to change something up. Maybe the rope rescue training that we're doing is not enough. Maybe we need to do something different. Maybe our incident command presence maybe wasn't as strong as we like it to be. Maybe we need to work on incident commanders, or maybe we need this piece of equipment. Right. We just recently moved towards. We just purchased fast boards. Right. So maybe there's something that we need in a confined space to be able to help us make a rescue. And we'll take a look at it, and we'll purchase that equipment so that every department has that as well. So it's such a great, and Bobby Seeberger, he's the chairman. He's done a great job over the several years, bringing us to where we are now. But everyone that's in that committee is, all in. I have AJ Woods lives around the corner from my house. We actually, drove in together to the Newark incident. And everyone that's part of this committee, like, they 100% all in it, and we've all worked together to really, bring it to a place where, we can go anywhere within New Jersey or even New York City for that matter. We've done some training with FDNY. We can go anywhere in this area, and make a situation better. Make a situation.
So I was going to ask, how do you guys work with, or do you not work with, the New Jersey Task Force 1, the FEMA team?
No, that's an excellent question. So a lot of our guys that are, some of our guys that are in the committee are on the FEMA team. A lot of the guys that are in our individual cities as part of these task forces are also, on the New Jersey Task Force 1. We had a building collapse, I believe, a couple of years ago I want to say it was East Orange. I could be wrong, but we had a building collapse, and it was late at night, and it was a large 5-story tenement building that was under construction that collapsed onto the sidewalk. So there was a lot of debris and brick that was on the sidewalk, and they were uncertain as to whether or not anyone was in any of those vehicles that were parked, or if there were any passerbys that were walking past when the collapse took place. So it was obviously a full response. And when we got there, as the incident command staff, we made the determination right away that we needed to reach out to Task Force 1 so that they can bring their search dogs, right? Because they have the access to equipment that we don't have, right? A lot of equipment we do. So we just purchase some search cams. One of the reasons why we decided on this specific search cam is because Task Force One uses it, and they've had a lot of success with it. So there's a lot of a lot of familiarity, a lot of parallel. You could draw parallel lines between the two, and we would work hand in hand and call them as our subject matter experts for that particular incident based on the needs of and incident priorities. Right. So we would definitely work hand in hand and call them as we need them. But we're almost like the first call out, right, for this type of incident a lot of times. So we'll call us first because a lot of these incidents we can handle without needing Task Force One. But if it's depending on the complexity and how much of a major incident it is, then 100% we'll reach out to Task Force One and they'll come with whatever resources we need, and we'll work together.
Okay. Excellent. So now you want to get into your promotion to Deputy Chief in 2022, and then we'll get into the promotional prep program.
Yeah, absolutely. So in 2022, I was promoted to Deputy Chief, and usually when you get promoted, you hope that there's a line position, right? You hope that there's a position out on the line, meaning out on the shift versus being stuck in headquarters. I will say that there is some value, especially when you move up the ranks into a chief officer position. There is value in working in headquarters, and we get comfortable with our 24-hour shift. We want to go to fires, right? We want to go to incidents. We want to, I want to sit down and have breakfast, lunch, and dinner with the guys in the firehouse, right? Because that's part of what we love, right? In the fire service is that brotherhood, that camaraderie, that family environment. Absolutely. When you're an administrative guy working out of headquarters, that you're now your office staff and that whole part of the fire service that you love and you had look forward to and it's fun, it kind of goes away. But there is some value to it because I spent a little bit of time as a battalion chief and a little bit of time as a deputy in headquarters, and you do build a little bit of an appreciation for what the headquarters staff does. They do put in a lot of work when it comes to putting in for grant money, getting equipment, purchasing supplies. Even the toilet paper that you wipe your ass with is a pain in the ass to get, right? Because not understanding what it takes. It really is, man. Not understanding what it takes to buy a roll of toilet paper. Right now, I know all the moving parts, and then with us, it's so unique that it's not like we're a town where we have a city town council and we have one person to go to, one business administrator, and we want this or that, and we put it for it and we get it, right? We got 5 cities, and so we have to wait for
5 headaches.
Yeah, and we have to wait for a meeting, and they all have to agree that we can buy this, move from like Scott tissue to Charmin or something like that, right? like so everything is a and listen, I'm minimizing it, right? I'm minimizing it just to bring some levity to it, but it is very difficult. It's very difficult to get something purchased, to change an SOP, and we have a lot of guys that have a lot of great ideas and they want to be part of the decision-making process. And I think it's important for us to allow anyone that wants to be part of something and wants to be part of a decision-making process to be part of that process, right? Give them a little bit of buy-in. But so I being in headquarters, it was a natural transition for me to become the training chief. Because like when you're a division chief, when you're a deputy chief in headquarters, there's certain responsibilities that you're assigned to. And a lot of times it's like whoever's next, like who's up. Like you get promoted, this is what you're going to get.
Whose turn is it?
Whose turn is it? And then whoever's there is waiting for a line position so they can leave headquarters and go out on the line, right? And be on back to a rotating shift. So
I also think there's a little bit, like you said, I think there's a lot to be said for going into that staff position in headquarters and seeing that, tomorrow when I'm out on the line and I'm screaming that, hey, Chief, I've been asking for this for 6 months. What did you do to help me get it? Like, I'm trying here. If you came to me with a stack of papers of justifications and why you need it and how you did it, it's that much easier for me to justify it on my end in the office. However, if you never see that side of the game, it changes how you're playing the position. And now, not only that, but now I'm back in the firehouse. I can explain that to the frustrated men on the floor that, hey, I've been coming to you, beating you up for this, for this left-handed smoke shifter. And where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Hey, now you as the deputy chief or the battalion chief that just got out of that staff position, you're able to articulate that a little bit better to the guys on the floor that are frustrated. Because let's face it, we've all been
Yeah.
there, where whatever it was, there was something that was our pet peeve, and it had us really pissed off that it was taking so long to get it, and we were all mad at the bureaucracy and the politics. We didn't understand. But once that chief gets that staff role and you're in headquarters and you're seeing the day-to-day of what it takes to get that left-handed smoke shift, now you're able to articulate it a little bit better, and maybe that's a little bit better for morale on the floor, even having us
It is,
having the leaders.
and for sure, and I think it's even more important for us as supervisors, right? Especially in a chief officer position, to understand that it is not beneath you to explain things. Like, guys need an explanation, right? Like, we forget sometimes that we were in that position and we were bitching and moaning about the fact that, we've had this, Cutter's Edge has been out of service for so long. How come, you know what I mean? Like, we forget that these guys on the line need this, right? And so we make the mistake sometimes of not realizing that they require an explanation, and you should have to explain. It's not like, I shouldn't have to explain myself, I'm a chief officer. No, it is the opposite. Like, if you're in that position where you can make change and you have the authority to make things happen, 100%. Like, I always felt this. I always felt that no matter whether I was a sergeant in the Marines, sergeant in the corrections, whether I was a captain, battalion chief, and now I was a deputy, I worked for the men and women. I work for you. Like, as a supervisor,
we don't come to work. You don't have a fire department.
No, and I'm there to what do you need? I'm there to figure out what do you need to make your job easier, safer, better, more comfortable, right? And how can I make that happen for you? Because guess what? If I take care of you, you're going to take care of me. So I think that we need to we have to understand that and guess what? The men and women are going to go above and beyond when they understand why you're asking for something. If they understand why you want something done that particular way, they may say, that's stupid. Why would we do that? Right? Well, hey, did you consider X, Y, and Z? Oh, yeah. You know what, Chief? That makes a lot of sense. I didn't think about that. You know what? I'll get right on it. All right. Thank you. Like, there's no reason why we can't get to that place where we're giving explanations and we're thanking the men and women for doing what they, you know what I mean? We get to that place where we, feel like I have this sense of entitlement as a boss that, it's say as I, do as I say, not as I do kind of thing, and that's a huge mistake, because you're going to get people to do things because they feel that they have to, not because they want to, right? And you want people to want to work for you, and I always felt that was extremely important. And I felt like the responsibility, the higher up you go in rank, the responsibility of doing that is greater. Like, it's not a ticket to sit back and say, I can chill out now. I'm a deputy chief and I can relax. No, it's like, I got more work on my desk now than I've ever had, because guess what? Now I have more influence in my position to be able to make things happen. And if I want a vendor to come in and show us something, I don't need to ask anybody. I call the chief of department and say, Chief, I want to take a look at this piece of equipment. I just want to give you a heads up. I'm going to have him come in and demo it for us. All right. Yeah, no problem. I keep him involved. I keep him advised, right? Because that's the right thing to do. But my point is that, I'm not saying I can do whatever the hell I want, but my point is that there's a lot that I have leeway. I have so much more leeway now that I feel like I can make things happen and I can make change, and I've done that. As I got promoted, I was assigned as the chief of training. And now they've promoted a battalion chief that's going to be taking it over, but I'm still working with him to kind of show him the ropes. But when I took over as chief of training, man, I said, you know what, this is a perfect opportunity for us to change the way that we train, to change the way that we do Mayday training, rig training, this, that, and the other, and bring in, different vendors and start to kind of like, upgrade the way that we train. And so, I kind of took that role and ran with it, in addition to my special ops role. There's a lot of stuff to do. And in true fashion of today's fire service, right? A lot of times agencies and administration wants to do more with less. And so it's perfect for them, for me to take on extra responsibilities, right? And I've had guys tell me, why are you doing all that, man? Why are you doing that for the department? Why are you doing? No, I'm
I
not
hope
doing
you
it.
pull out a mirror and go right here.
Yeah,
For
that's
you.
why. That's why I'm doing it. I'm doing
you
it for
guys.
doing it for us.
For you
How
guys, and
many
at the end
times
of the
have we
day,
wished,
for them. For
right?
them
How
out
many times
there.
have we wished that somebody out there was looking out for us? You know, so
Yeah.
that's I've always kind of like approached things in that manner. So, you know, I was in headquarters for 6 to 8 months, and you know, and that time was good for me because I sit on a lot of different committees, and so I go to a lot of meetings on my off time. So now, if I'm assigned to headquarters staff, it made it easier for me to go to these meetings, go to the UASI meetings, go. You know, I sit on the Fireboat Task Force. So when we have Fireboat Task Force committee, I sit on the Area Maritime Security Committee, the AMSAC with the Coast Guard. You know, so there's a lot of different committees that I belong to. Fire Threat Task Force, which I kind of had to pull back, but I was heavily involved in the Fire Threat Task Force with the Division of Fire and Safety. It was with their help that I was able to put out the active shooter best practices toolkit that went out several years ago to fire departments. You know, it was a lot easier for me to go to these meetings, right? Because now I'm on duty. Now it's easier for me to go take the staff vehicle. I go to the meeting, come back, do what I have to do. So that I was definitely appreciative of that opportunity. But there's nothing like being on the line and as a division chief, having your own shift and having your own tour, right? And running that shift the way that you feel is the right way to run it. You know, so when I went back to that shift, man, I was extremely excited, extremely happy. And, you know, I sat with sat with every, you know, I ran battalion meetings. And I sat with every member there. And I told them, I said, this is what I want for us. You know, this is what I want us to be. I want us to be the best shift on the department. You know, I want us to be the 3rd Division. I want us to be the tip of the spear. You know, I changed our logo. I made a logo for us, right? So I said, this is what I want for us. And this is how I think we can get it, because there's a lot of talent on this group, right? And I want to show that talent, and I want to make that talent grow, because if I open up the doors to training, and if I open up the doors to ideas and different opportunities, these guys are going to feel empowered, man. And they're going to feel like, you know what, this is great, man. I feel like I have an idea, and it's going to be heard. Right. And so for me, that was extremely important. And now as a tour commander, you know, I'm seeing like the change. I've been a tour commander now for, I'm going on a year now, February, this month will be a year, as a tour commander in the 3rd Division. Thank you. And actually, I didn't even think about that till right now. But it's been an excellent year, man. And these guys bust their asses at jobs. They train, they don't complain, right? It really is, man. I'm really, really fortunate to have a great group of battalion chiefs. Like my battalion chiefs are excellent, man. They really help me out. And they're definitely leaders on this department. And our company officers, our firefighters, everybody wants to be there. Everybody wants to work where they work. Right. Nobody wants to, like, I had a situation where I had to transfer somebody out of shift because there was a couple other shifts that were low on manpower. And it was not easy, man, because nobody wants to leave. And that's what I want. I want guys to, if you're a leader, you want people to want to work for you for all the right reasons.
Yeah.
Right. You want to be the person that guys want to work for. Right. And if you do that, the quality of work that you're going to put out at fires and in training is going to show, you know. And at the end of the day, you know, it's going to make the community safer. It's going to make the firefighters safer, right? They're going to go home at the end of their shift. And in my opinion, man, that's what it's all about. You know, that's what it's all about.
Absolutely. At the end of the day, that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
All right. So let's move on. With what you're doing with the state DFS fire service active shooter. Can you talk about that? Can you not? What?
Yeah. So I'll start within North Hudson. So within North Hudson, as it falls under the special operations umbrella, but I'm also the law enforcement liaison for the department. So I have 5 counterparts, right, in the different police departments that are my points of contacts within those agencies. And in addition to that, I'm very close with the SWAT team commander for the Hudson Regional SWAT team. I work with them closely we've put together an MOA, and we have a written agreement on how we would respond to an active shooter incident in any one of these 5 cities that we cover.
Okay.
Part of that MOA explains um, the type of training that we do. Right, we do tabletop discussions. We meet with schools. We meet with the hospitals. We meet with religious institutions to be able to develop an active shooter response plan within that building. We do, like I said, tabletop and roundtable discussions, but we try to do at least 2 drills a year, where we're doing some hands-on training, bleeding control, actually moving with the police officers throughout a building. We'll have a situation where, part of the drill is that we have a shooter that's been contained in a remote part of the building, and you have law enforcement officers have him contained, but we have X number of victims in the cafeteria, and that cafeteria has been searched and there's no bad guys in that cafeteria. Now we have to move from the exterior of the building into that cafeteria to start treating and triaging those victims. So we have ballistic gear, we have ballistic equipment, we have all the bleeding control tourniquets, quick clot, chest seals, so on and so forth. And then we'll move with those law enforcement officers that are part of that rescue task force that will not peel off, right? And for no reason, they stay with that fire and EMS element to be able to move into that warm zone area. Like we'll create hot, warm, and cold zones, sort of like as you would with a hazardous material, where we say, okay, this is the hot zone. This is where the shooter is. Bad guys here. That's the hot zone, right? Cops only, right? No fire personnel, no EMS personnel whatsoever. This area here is a warm zone, and we call it a warm zone because it's been initially cleared by law enforcement, but you never know, something bad can happen. We still need a security element to go in there with it. Correct. And even if there was a secondary, we're still going to call it a hot zone, right? Or excuse me, a warm zone until the incident's over. And then the cold zone will be the outside of the building, maybe not even the exterior of the building. It might be 2 blocks down, right? Because anywhere within line of sight of a potential shooter, like at a window, is now a hot zone. So depending on the incident, right, is going to determine where you're going to set up those operational zones. And that's something that law enforcement is going to pretty much identify right away. But that takes a lot of moving parts and a lot of pre-planning, a lot of training ahead of time to be able to make that work successfully. And understanding what our capabilities are as a fire department, understanding, I've sat down, I've done classes for incident command classes for some of these law enforcement officers. I sat down and did an incident command crash course, and it's something that they do now in the police academies, and they're being exposed to it now, but they don't do it every day like we do, right? We get alarm activation, we have an incident command system set up. Talk about incident command, radio communications, radio traffic, hands-on operations. So there's something that we train on, and we try, and the problem is that trying to get back on track after COVID has been slow. But we're still getting back to that, because COVID really, we developed these MOUs prior to COVID, and then after COVID, during COVID, we couldn't get together to train, right? And then now you have guys that have retired, and now you have a change of guard, and then now you have to explain everything, lay the groundwork all over again. So we're in that rebuilding phase, but we're in a really good spot in Hudson County, because I also sit on the committee with the county. Where we're working towards training everyone within the county on active shooter response, all the police, fire, and EMS. And we're doing a good job of working together. And I think within the county, I think that I think that what we've done could serve as a framework for everyone else in the state. So,
absolutely.
Prior to a lot of that, we kind of started off with, NJOHSMP, New Jersey Office of Homeland Security and Preparedness. At the time, it was Mike Urbanski was the guy who was kind of running all the training, and he reached out to me and said, let's get together and let's put together a best practices toolkit that we could send out to all the fire departments so that they have some type of roadmap that they can use if they want to develop an active shooter program, so they know what it entails. So it took us several months between myself, NJOHSMP, and the New Jersey Division of Fire Safety. We would meet and discuss. And I basically, while I was putting that together, I was developing the SOP for North Hudson. So the best practices toolkit is pretty much almost identical to the SOP that we have in North Hudson. So we've been able to and it was several years ago that we put that together. And my understanding was that it was sent out to the county coordinators, and then eventually filtered out to a lot of the fire departments. But there wasn't a lot of buy-in at the time. So I think a lot of times when you receive these emails and just don't understand what it is, you kind of let it go by the wayside. But luckily, I've had the opportunity to train under, the DFS and the Kane umbrella, be able to, during COVID, we were doing Zoom classes. So I was doing active shooter awareness programs through Zoom. And then once we started moving out of COVID, there were some departments that called me up and asked me to come by and do a program for them. I actually put a program. I didn't do the program, but I trained Montclair Fire Department. They asked me to come in and run a class and a training class for their fire personnel, so that they can put together their active shooter program. And now they have an up and running, fully functional active shooter rescue task force program along with their law enforcement counterparts. So, a lot of these things really kind of start with having a discussion with your law enforcement, because you can spend the money on equipment, you can spend the money on training, you can have the high-end equipment and training all you want, but if you don't have a written agreement with your law enforcement officers, they're not going to call you to an active shooter incident, right? They're just not going to do it. And we saw it in part in the Parkland shooting. Unfortunately, the EMS personnel went to that law enforcement incident commander, and they told her and said, "We're here. We're rescue task force. We're ready." And she didn't even know what the rescue task force was. They kind of just stood to the side. So if you don't have that written agreement, if you haven't trained and laid the groundwork for a rescue task force, then it's just not going to work. But
absolutely,
it's a work in progress, and I think that we've come far, but I think that we still have a lot of work to do within the state to make sure that every fire department. Look, I think that for the most part, if you have kids, you hope that whatever town you live in, that there's a rescue task force program. I know where I live, there isn't. Right. So the cops are training, they're doing active shooter training, but their training entails finding the bad guy and killing the bad guy, not taking care of the victims. Right. So that element is left out, unfortunately. And it becomes more difficult in the volunteer world, unfortunately, because usually when the cops are going to train, they're going to train during the day. Right. And so it's difficult to be able to get together with your fire and EMS side of things and get this done if they're not available. And it's another speed. And the other thing is, you don't know who you're going to get during the day. Right. Whereas when we responded to a shooting in West New York, and there was a police involved shooting in West New York. And the shooter went into an occupied multiple dwelling. And they were concerned that he was going to either take hostages or shoot people inside that building. And they called me up, and we sent a small element of our rescue task force just on standby. When I arrived on the scene, it was like I knew who the police captain was. He knew me. It was, "Hey, Al, how you doing?" And it was like we know each other because we've worked together. And in these types of hostile incidents, you need to be with people that you trust, right? And that and if you work together. So you got to build that ahead of time. You can't. That day is not going to be the time to say, "Hey, my name is Al Pratts. How are you? This is who I am, and this is what we have to offer."
Well, I can assert that to, or relate that to, the engine company boss. As I'm going through a door, I see Al Pratts and his truck company going to the roof, and I know, hey, you know what? We're good. We're gonna get some ventilation. We're gonna be able to get into see the fire and knock it down. There's that comfort.
Or you're walking into a building, and you're walking, you leave your apparatus and you're walking towards a building, and this thing is ripping, and you look over and you see your rig team, and you're like, "Oh shit, that's our rig team. We better not get jammed up because they're not going to be the ones that get us out."
Just make sure you know where the windows are, boys.
Yeah. That's the rig team. Don't get in trouble, right? So, but yeah, those relationships are extremely important. So whether it's active shooter, whether it's tech rescue, or whether it's a fire, right? Like establishing that trust, right? Trust is such a overused word in the fire service, right? But it's extremely, extremely important, right? Having that trust, building those relationships.
Yeah, I think it's underused.
Yeah,
I think it's an underused and undervalued word in this in this business, because we throw around the word brotherhood, but brotherhood's only good for me when it's good for me, and it's good for you when I say it's good for you. Like,
yeah. In the Marine Corps,
so I mean, there's that.
Semper Fi, I'm sure you've heard Semper Fi, right? In the Marine Corps, Semper Fi, Semper Fidelis. but the other version of that was Semper I. So instead
Yeah.
of Semper I, always faithful, is Semper I. It's always me. It doesn't matter where you go, you do have that, right? And so
Absolutely.
that's almost everywhere you
Oh,
go.
when bullets are flying and rooms are flashing over and fires blowing out windows, you gotta. It's much easier when you look at the person and you're like, "Oh, hey, how are you?" And
Right,
you know who they are, and you know how they work, and you know what to expect from them.
right, right. Yeah,
Like you said, whether it's oh, hey, I know they're going to be there and get their job done, or oh, all right, let's go to work and not screw up because
right,
that's our help.
right.
So let's get into let's get into the promotional prep program. What are you guys doing over there?
So, I'm super fortunate to be working with these guys, right? Mike Terpak, an amazing, he's a wealth of knowledge,
Absolutely.
and he's just a super cool dude, right? Like very down to earth. Mike Terpak is just, everybody knows the name, right? Mike Terpak. But when you sit down and talk to him, man, it's like talking to your cousin, your brother, your uncle, whatever, man. He's just a cool down to earth guy. And
Absolutely.
Frank Montagne was when I was first hired. Frank Montagne, Chief Montagne, was my deputy chief when I was first hired. When I
Oh,
became
okay.
a captain, I had Chief Avillo was my deputy chief when I got promoted to captain. When by the time I got promoted to as a captain and as a battalion chief, Chief Montagne was the chief of department. So I was fortunate to be around really good guys, right, through my upbringing in the fire service.
Yeah.
And unbeknownst to me, they Chief Montagne kind of had his eye on me as I was moving up the ranks and testing well. And when I became a battalion chief, he has said to me, he goes, look, it's Mike Terpak, Frank Montagne, and Jimmy Drennan from Jersey City, who was a battalion chief. That was the promotional prep team, and Jimmy Drennan was slowly making his way out. He was retired, and he was kind of taking a step back, and so they were going to be looking for somebody to sort of take his place. And so he reached out to me and said, "Look, you've done well in your promotional exams, and we know that you teach. We know that you're out there. You teach at the fire academy. You're doing a bunch of things. You're involved in the fire service. There's a lot that you're doing. Would you consider, seeing if you could do a class with us, and we'll kind of see if it's a good fit for you, if it's a good fit for me, and for us, and we'll go from there." So what I did was I said, yeah, absolutely. I appreciate the opportunity. I put together some scenarios similar to the promotional prep format. Kind of followed
Okay.
that format and put together some of my own scenarios with some of my own multiple choice questions, and also oral based questions with answer keys and so on and so forth. And basically that was kind of like my resume or my job application. And I gave it to them. They liked it, and they invited me to one of the classes that they were running for a company officer, level 1 and level 2, lieutenants and captains. So I went to that
Okay.
class with them, and I was, all three of them were there, and myself, and I was kind of watching them. And then they gave me an opportunity to present the scenarios that I put together and hand them out, and kind of do my portion of the class with that group, and I did. And then after that, they said to me, "Look, we like what you have to offer. Let's we'll hire you as a per diem instructor." So I started working with them per diem. Um, as Jimmy Drennan started making his way out, I would actually go to his house and sit down with him, and he would teach me for the entry level exam, right? So it's not just anyone listening. It's not just teaching guys how to take the promotional exam. It's also teaching firefighters teaching civilians how to take the firefighter entry exam to be able to get on the job. So
Okay.
he would teach
I
me
didn't know
his
that.
portion of that program. Oh yeah, no, that's a huge, like my son who's 22 years old. He's gonna be 22 this year. He took this last exam, and he was sitting in our classes with us.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, and it's funny because a lot of we run these classes, and we see so many kids that are sons and daughters of guys we know on the job. Like they send us, they're
Yeah.
like, "Oh, you guys are running a class. I'm sending you my kid." We had sons and daughters of firemen, fire officers sitting in our classes, right? And it's so great. Like we just put on a class of 23 that just started the academy this Monday. And sitting in the front row is I said, guys, raise your hand. And I know Sean Mick's Captain Sean Mick, his son. I know him very well. I've known him since he was little. And his name is Tan. He was sitting in front of the class. I'm like, holy shit, man. To me, it's unreal that this kid just got hired. He's sitting in the front row. He was in our classes. We had like, I think 4 probies that are sons of firefighters. And they happened to be in our entry level seminars that we ran. But a big part of this entry level exam, number one thing is going to be residency, right? Because that's like everything. If you don't have the residency, unfortunately, right, it's almost next to impossible to be hired by a career department if you don't have residency within that jurisdiction, right? So that's the number 1 hurdle.
100%.
But the number 2 hurdle that's super important is the personality portion testing of the exam. So, the personality questions, the questions that are designed to determine what your personality type is to me so important in the hiring or entry level exam, because it's a gauge, or it's supposed to determine whether or not you have the right personality that will make a successful firefighter. And absolutely. A lot of that is built around teamwork. A lot of it is built around leadership. Built around motivation, ethics, honesty, right? So a lot of these things, decision making. So a lot of these questions, and they'll ask you the same type of question 100 different ways to see if you're trying to cheat the system, and the algorithm will figure it out. But Jimmy Drennan he's the amount of work that he put in researching the personality testing, not just for New Jersey, but throughout the country, was just astounding. And I would sit with him, man, and he opened up one of these old school briefcases, right, on wheels. And he would take out these books and he would say, look, he would just kind of teach me the ropes of the personality testing and what they're looking for in the test. And so when it came to the entry level portion of the exam, I took over that section of the program, of the seminar. And so, but prior to that, I was working in with them with different promotional seminars. And in January of 2023, we went out for a Christmas dinner. We took the wives out for Christmas dinner, which we do every year. And then there on Christmas dinner, they offered me a partnership. And they offered to bring me on as a partner with Promotional Prep, which, to me was such a great opportunity. And I was, super excited to do that. I mean, we part of like my interview process, if you want to call it, or, I pitched during COVID, I pitched a program for us to put together, and I laid the groundwork for a webinar, an online program, so that guys that are taking the promotional exams could go into our website and purchase a program that will take them through all the steps and all the sections of our in-person seminar, but they have it at the at the ease of having it on a laptop or a mobile device or whatever the case is, so they can study on their own time. And then there's a downloadable PDF that goes along with the different sections that you can follow along with the student handout. And we've had so much success with that I had one of our firefighters that is barely had 5 years on the job. Promotional list came out, and he came out number 5. And I was like, wow, this is pretty impressive. And so I walked up to him, and just so you know, like the number 5, I mean, that's for a captain in North Hudson, you're going to get promoted. I mean, like within it traditionally it's like the top 20 have a really good shot of getting made. It used to be 30, but things are getting a little bit more difficult. But I went up to him. I said, man, you did such an excellent job. I said, where'd you go? Where'd you study? Because I didn't see him in any of our classes. And he goes, I just purchased the online program, the webinar. And he goes, that's all I did. Wow. And then I followed that, and I read the books. I was like, holy shit, man, congratulations. You did an excellent job. We had a lot of people email us and let us know how successful this was for them, and when we've looked at the number of guys that have been promoted to captain, lieutenant, battalion, and deputy chief, the numbers are just, they're ridiculous. And it's great because if you ask the chief of that department, right, I don't care where it is, you ask the chiefs, where'd you study? And they'll tell you, we went to promotional prep. That's where I studied. And so for me, I'm just super blessed and fortunate to, to just be in the same conversation with these guys.
Yeah, I mean, those names, the names alone, it's like, wow.
Yeah, no, yeah, no, and now what we did was we were invited. So when we would run our classes, we always get guys from Connecticut. We get guys from New York State every now and then that jump into our classes because we open it up to
Now, do you
anybody.
do you
We get a
find
lot.
that the do you? I'm sorry. Do you find that the other states and cities have similar processes, even though
Yeah,
it's
so they
nothing like
differ.
New Jersey's?
They differ, but what's the reason why they gravitate towards our classes is because the oral prep version of our program, like what we teach our students for the oral prep, is really what's, in my opinion, what's the word has gotten around. Like
Yeah,
you get guys that went and how'd you get promoted? Oh yeah, I went to this guy in Jersey, went to these people in Jersey. And even though the setup is a little bit different, even though the reading list might be different, but their oral prep really helped me with my presentation, which is everything. Your presence, your
yeah,
communication, and what you say versus a multiple choice test. Right? Anybody could get lucky on a multiple choice test. Now, speaking in front of a camera or speaking to a board and letting them know what steps you will take, how you're going to establish command, what things are you going to look for, right? These actions are either you know
yeah,
it or you don't know it, and you have a very
absolutely.
limited time frame to be able to spit it out. So you can't be hitting them with fluff and bullshit information.
Yep.
And so we would get guys from Philly in our classes all the time. So what we did recently was we actually got together with the Philly Fire Officers Association, and we ran a program for Philly Fire Department, and we had a bunch of their guys some of their guys get promoted already. Some of the guys are waiting. They're at the top of the list. And so we had a pretty successful outcome with putting something together that was more Philly specific, because their oral portion of the exam is almost identical to what we do. The difference
Okay.
is with their written, they focus a lot on their directives, policies,
Yeah,
procedures, SOPs, and that sort of thing. Where with New Jersey Civil Service is not SOP driven at all. It's the books. So you have the book list, whereas Philly has some of the similar books that we have, plus they have their directives, SOPs, rules
yeah,
and regulations, so on and so forth, plus the oral portion of the exam, which is they're given a scenario and they have to answer the question on how they're going to handle that scenario, which is very similar to what we do in Jersey. So
okay,
that's something that's been very successful for us, and we actually started building out programs for other departments out there outside of New Jersey, based off of their test taking process, because Terpak especially, he's worked with test developers throughout the country, so he knows what they're looking for. Right? He knows what the way that a test assessor is thinking, and that
yeah,
definitely
absolutely.
works in our favor. It works in our favor. So and what we do is it's not about here's a script, right? Memorize this and you'll
Yeah,
be
read.
fine.
Yeah,
Right? Anybody could do that, right? Anybody could sell a script and say, yeah, you pay me and I'm going to give you a script that you need to memorize. No, for us, we're going to teach you. Number one, if you know building construction, if you learn strategies and tactics, and you understand why this is where we need to stretch a line. If you understand that we need to put ground ladders here, if you know that we have to prepare and have that, be thinking ahead of time and saying, you know what, the fire is in the cockloft. We have an opportunity to possibly cut a trench, and you start thinking about possible trench cut operations, and you work that into your response, even if they're not looking for that, right? It shows your anticipative skills, right? So it's more of a matter of really being able to read the scenario, digest the information that's in the scenario, understand the clues that they're giving you, that they want you touching on certain things. So being able to read that in that manner, critically read and understand what they're looking for, is going to allow you to be able to give your presentation and for it to be a thorough response versus a half-assed response. Because we see the appeals for guys that say, yeah, you know what, I'm appealing this question because I did say this or I said that. They want you to be very, very specific. Like you can't assume that it is understood that when when you say that you're going to account for personnel, that's not the same thing as calling for a par, right? Accounting for personnel and calling for a par, as far as the test assessors are concerned, are not the same thing. So,
okay,
so there's certain things that you have to really understand, and we take a lot of time and attention just to make sure that our students understand that it's not just selling them a list of test questions, right? It's more about understanding the material. And then it helps you
Well,
as
not only that,
as
but
a
preparing you to do the job when you
to
get
do the job.
promoted,
Right.
and understand
Absolutely.
why you'll have to do this, have to hit this bullet point, this bullet point, this bullet. Understand the importance of it, especially for those guys that maybe, you know what, barely qualified to take the test, barely have enough time on the job to take the test, and are taking that test, and oh, hey, you know what, I came out number one. Oh man, we just had a bunch of captains, and now all of a sudden I'm barely qualified to take the test, and now I'm like a lieutenant or a captain, and maybe I don't really understand the job, you know,
For sure.
and that's what your program teaches. It's
Mhm.
from what I hear. Um,
Yeah, and that's why we actually started getting into, and Mike has been doing this all over the country, running seminars and running classes, but we started doing that in Jersey on a smaller scale as well, with making a little adjustment and change to make it specific to that agency. So we did a program for Nutley Fire Department just pretty recently, where they wanted a program for size up considerations, strategies, and tactics for the first due officer, right? And obviously they reached out to us and they know what we have and who we are, right? And so, instead of just saying, yeah, we'll do the job and we're going to deliver our cookie cutter program, which we already have, right? We have several PowerPoints and programs that tomorrow we can go teach somewhere, right? Instead of doing that, what we said was, you know what? Let's put this about a month out. Send me a bunch of addresses and target hazards that you have in your response area in your jurisdictions. A couple buildings that maybe you've had fires in, a couple buildings that maybe you guys don't want to have fires in, right? Like, this is worst case scenario. I hope I never have a fire here, right? Send me a few addresses. And then what I did was I went online and I looked it up on Google Maps. And just like we put together our scenario packets for our test prep, we found the A side, B side, C, D side, whatever aerial plot plan view of the building, and we worked it into our PowerPoint. And I have a Paul Lopez hooked me up with a fire graphics,
okay.
like a GIF, right? That I can
Okay.
I can put right
Make a
into my
scenario for you.
my scenario. And so, like, when I click the button, you see the fire, you see the smoke, it's moving, right? So it's dynamic. I can click it once and I have fire here, click it again. Now smoke's coming out of
Okay.
the cockloft fence or whatever the case is,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Whatever
yeah.
I decide based on the building. So now you're looking at a building in your response area. You know that building, right? And there's a fire. Give me a size up, right? So we'll
Yep.
run through like a size up class of building construction portion, and then at the end of each section of that construction type, right, we'll give you that building that's in your area and say, well, give me your response. What will you do? What's your size up? What are your strategies and tactics? Where's your first line going? How are you venting? So on and so forth. So it
Okay.
becomes something that's interactive and more custom than just a cookie cutter program. In fact, there was a
I like it.
building that I had showed that some of the guys, you showed the A side of the building, and I asked one of the guys, I said, well, what does roof operations look like here for you? And he's like, yeah, we'll go up to the roof. We're going to cut this, cut that. It's okay. So the next slide over shows the roof of that building. It's littered with solar panels, and they didn't even know that there were solar panels on that roof. There's no placard or nothing
Yeah.
that says that there's solar panels on the roof. They didn't even know that there were solar panels on there.
Crazy.
So that shows the interest of or the need to pre-plan your response area and to get out there and
Absolutely.
train. And for me, I believe it was based off of the feedback that we got. It was a well-received and excellent program. And the other thing is, you can get a program that says this is what your engine should do, your truck should do this, X, Y, and Z. But if your department is, two engines or an engine and a truck riding out together, I could talk about, Norman's strategies and tactics. I can talk about everything that we would do in North Hudson, right? When we report a fire, report a smoke, we're sending 4 engines, 2 trucks, a rescue unit, a safety officer, an accountability officer, a battalion chief, a deputy chief to report a fire, right? Confirm working fire, we're adding another battalion chief and a 5th engine, right?
Damn.
Who has the luxury of that many pieces of apparatus and that much manpower? Not everybody.
Not me.
So I can sit there and
me.
I could teach your department a strategies and tactics class, assuming that you have all these resources, but because I know ahead of time,
and the guys in the class are looking at you like, oh yeah, that must be nice.
We're gonna do that, right? Like, oh,
let me get a
my second
helicopter too.
Right. My second do ladder, that's mutual aid. My rig team is a mutual aid company. So, but there's things that have to happen on the fireground, regardless of what your manpower
Yeah,
and your apparatus, regardless of what it is, there's things that have to happen. You have to primary,
100%.
secondary searches, ventilation, horizontal vertical ventilation, rig team in place, staging. You have to get these things done, because if
Yeah.
they don't, then it's on you, regardless of the size of your department. But if for
And
those things to
and
happen, if that's mutual aid,
as you're stepping up in accountability and in rank and responsibility, you have to understand how to prioritize those elements.
absolutely.
Hey, you know what? I got 2 guys on the truck company today. I guess we're horizontal ventilation, and then we'll get to the roof when we get to the roof. And
Right.
and you got to learn how to prioritize those things.
Yep. So ahead of time, what we do is in addition to getting the buildings, is ask you for, copy your SOPs and your response, your response plans, and that way we have an idea of what you're doing, and realistically how it's going to work and look like at your, in your jurisdiction. Again, just kind of staying away from that cookie cutter, program, and being more specific to your agency, because that's important. At the end of the day, you're going to have guys sitting in the class and they're going to be looking at you like, yeah, that would be nice. Yeah, that's never going to happen, And so I think it holds a lot of weight when you make something that's specific to that agency.
Absolutely. Do you have anything else on that, or you want to get to the final questions?
Oh yeah, now I didn't study. I didn't study these questions. Shame on me, right? I'm a
Oh, you
promotional
did.
prep guy. I should be
You did.
studying. I did look at them. I did look at them though. I did check them out. I thought they were great questions. And then what I did was, instead of having a prepared response, I said, all right, I know what the questions are, and let's just go with it so that it's
All right.
real. Well,
All right. So for our viewers, I have come up with, I think it's 5 or 6 Jersey questions. I'm gonna hit you with number 1, and you're all gonna understand right now. Chief Pratts, are you ready?
yes, sir.
Is it pork roll or Taylor ham?
Taylor ham, brother. Taylor ham, egg and cheese, salt, pepper, ketchup, toasted roll. In fact, there's a good bagel place by me that will put in a one of those old school hash browns, like the rectangular hash brown inside of that. Oh man, that's the shit right there, man. With a little hot sauce. It's Taylor ham, man. It's not pork roll. I'm a North Jersey guy, even though I live, and we'll get into that as well. I'm in southern Middlesex, kind of like northern Monmouth County bordering.
Whoa. We're gonna get to that question in a minute, sir. Let's slow it down.
But no matter where I go, it's Taylor ham.
The best pizza in the state of New Jersey. Because let's face facts, we all know New Jersey has the best pizza in the world.
Yeah, man. Yeah,
outside of Italy.
So for me, best pizza in New Jersey is a very tough question, because so number one, it's always gonna be a mom and pop pizzeria. Like never, like for me, I'm sorry, Domino's and what's the other one? There's Papa John's and all these other. That's not pizza. Like, yeah, my kids, they're like, they don't even know what that is. They're like they've gone to like birthday parties of other kids where they have that, and they're like, that's not pizza. Like pizza has to be, in my opinion, crispy, some type of crispy, thin crust, preferably a brick oven type pizza, something crispy is kind of like what I like. So where I live, there's a couple good places that I like to go to. One is La Madonna in Matawan. The other one's Esposito, also in Matawan. And then there's another one, Crispy Pizza in Old Bridge. So crispy, okay. and all these pizzerias, like they're from Staten Island, they're from somewhere in New York, and they've come over, and like we're so close to, we're 20 minutes. It's quicker for me to get to Staten Island than it is for me to get to work. So it's like we have like that very heavy, Staten Island, Brooklyn influence where I live. So if I'm home, then my go-to is going to be La Madonna. That's usually our go-to. I like something saucy, like a grandma pie, or margarita pie is nice every now and then, but I also like a good white pie. I love pizza. So for me, it's like even bad pizza is good pizza. You know what I mean? Like for me, even bad pizza. So in Union City, Tamini's in Union City is a spot to go to up there. In my opinion, if you're up there, Tamini's is a place to go. I also like if I'm in New York City, if I'm in a village, I don't know if you ever had an artichoke, Basil's artichoke.
No.
Man, it's a crispy, it's a little bit of a thicker crust because it has to hold the weight of the artichoke spinach cream, and it's got like pieces
Okay.
of artichoke on it. Man, it's a phenomenal pie. Um,
All right.
but yeah, I can't say this one place is my favorite because there's so many different pizzerias that I like to go to. But if you have one, make sure you let me know which one so I can check it out. I tell you, we went to a soccer. My daughter plays very competitive soccer. We went up to Massachusetts. On the way back, one of the guys who like we share a lot of stories about pizza. He says to me, he goes, "On your way back, stop in New Haven and go to shit."
I think I know what you're talking
Somebody
about. I can't think of the name
somebody
either.
out there, yeah, somebody out
Like,
there is saying it, and they have this clam pie. It's an oven,
yes.
a brick
Yep.
oven like clam pie pizza. Oh my
Mhm.
god, I'll remember the name before this is over. But phenomenal place. Yeah, phenomenal.
All right. Third question. Does Central Jersey really exist? Be careful. Be
I'd
careful
rather
how you
talk about
answer this, sir.
religion. I'd rather talk about religion and politics than talk about if Central Jersey exists. And so, growing up in Hudson County, if you got on the Parkway, if you took the Turnpike, and the minute you got off exit 11 onto the Parkway, you were in South Jersey. You were down the shore. Like the minute you saw the Driscoll Bridge, you were down the shore, and that's just growing up in North Jersey. It was like you were down the shore already, and we know that not to be the case, right?
Wow.
Geographically speaking, there is a central, north, central, south. Geographically, you could break anything up into
You're being
three
very
separate
political how you're
sections.
answering this, sir.
Hey, listen, that's my time in the office as a deputy chief in headquarters has kind of helped me out with these types of questions. Um, Look, no, I technically I guess I live in what's considered Central Jersey. And one of the doctor's offices that my daughter goes to is Central Jersey office of whatever. So I guess technically there is a Central Jersey. But like I said, being a North Jersey guy, kid, growing up in North Jersey, anytime that we went past south of exit 11 on the Turnpike, we were in South Jersey, which I know that not to be the case. I think if there's more Philly fans, if there are more Philly fans than Giants or Jets fans, then you're in South Jersey. I would say that.
All right. You're right. You're right.
You're nodding your head, so it doesn't look like you're in agreement.
Where I grew up, there was more New Yorkers than there were anything else.
Where'd you grow up?
Freehold. Born and raised.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You are in Central Jersey, sir. I know where you live.
Okay.
All right. So you kind of alluded to this question already. Is it going to the beach or down the shore? And you kind of answered that one already. So now what's your beach? What is your location of preference when you're going down the shore?
Island Beach State Park.
Okay. All right.
Island Beach State
Good
Park
time,
because
fishing rods.
I like to bring the dogs. I like to bring the dogs to Island Beach State Park, and that's pretty much the only that you could really bring them to. It's clean. It's not a lot of people. I don't like crowds. I'm not a crowd type of person. I like nice, quiet, type thing, and so that's kind of like my go-to as far as the beach is concerned.
All right. All right.
And
Next
LBI,
question.
It's way too far for me. I'm just saying LBI is obviously beautiful. LBI is amazing. There's a lot of great beaches in New Jersey. But for me, as far as distance goes and as far as accessibility and just being in a nice, calm, quiet beach down the shore, I like Island Beach.
All right. Fair enough. Proudest achievement or accomplishment on the job?
I think that one of the things that, and it's not, I don't know if I can call it an accomplishment because it's a work in progress, is working with the department and the unions to try to develop a mental health program and have something that works for our guys. Unfortunately, we've had a couple of suicides, a few suicides, some other firefighters that we've lost to addiction. And we have a good majority of our personnel are military veterans, and a lot of those military veterans that have been hired within the past 5, 6 years, 7 years are combat military veterans that have their PTSD and have dealt with things overseas that they're struggling with, and you know and again, I don't want to say it's something that I'm proud that I've accomplished, but I take a lot of pride in working with the unions to try to put something together. And we've worked together to provide access to different mental health resources. We've had companies come in and provide services for us. There's a couple other things that I've been able to make connections with other agencies and be able to link up our firefighters to these agencies as needed. Work together to develop an awareness of mental health, try to remove that stigma. And it's not, I don't want to say it's my doing, because it's not, but it's something that I take a lot of pride in working with the unions to try to make this work as best as possible. So I would say that is extremely important, because it's something that we train, and we a lot of what we do is so that we can better ourselves, so that we can save others. But I believe that this is something that we can do to save each other and save ourselves.
After 200 or 300 years of the fire service, we need to start focusing on helping ourselves too. You're right.
Yeah,
You're 100%
absolutely.
right.
Yeah.
And the stigma's got to go, and I'm glad to see that it's starting to become part of the culture in the business.
Yeah, we've done resiliency training. We've been able to get companies to come in, do resiliency training for us. The UASI has a great program in conjunction with the PFA&J. They've come in. We've done the peer counseling. We've had guys trained and certified as peer counselors as well. So to the point where I've had guys call me, firefighters, right? Call me and say, "Hey, Chief, I'm having a hard time with this. Where's a resource I can turn to, right? Or I heard you talking about that, right? What's something that we can do, right?" I did a webinar similar to what you're doing here, just for my guys. Okay. I had some of my close friends that are from different fire departments. Mike Terpak, one of them, Brian Emmenecker from Camden. Chris Ryan from Gloucester City, and Joe Grassi from Hoboken. We got together and we did a webinar. I created a PowerPoint on leadership, right? But it was really focused on mental health, and then what we did is kind of run it through the unions, where we provided this 1 hour kind of fireside chat, right? Talk kind of around the kitchen table, focused around leadership and mental health. It's supposed to be an hour. It went for like 2.5 hours just because the conversation got so good. But, ever since then, I've had guys come up to me and say, "Look, we need to do that again. Let's," because, the leadership and the mental health go hand in hand, because us as leaders, we have to make sure that we're keeping our guys safe, whether it's cancer, right, prevention, whether it's mental health, right? These things are for us. Everything else that we do training wise, it's for them. This is for us.
Yeah. Well, not even just them. We need to worry about ourselves. Leaders need to worry about themselves too, because you know what? Mm-hmm. Deputy chiefs of department, battalion chiefs, you got 20, 30 years. That's 20 and 30 years of bad experiences, things that we don't want to remember, but it's still in there and you can't get it out. And we need to start, we need to start dealing with it. A generation, 2-3 generations ago, they dealt with it with a bottle and just go away. I'll be down in the basement of the firehouse, or know, and it wasn't good. It wasn't healthy. It wasn't good for us or for our families or for our crews or anybody else.
Right.
All right. Last and final question. What advice do you have for the fire service, for future generations, current members, past members, for the fire service as a whole? What advice do you got, Chief?
Stay in the books. Be wary of anyone that calls himself an expert in anything. The fire service is constantly evolving and changing. We need to evolve and change with the fire service. Train, study, keep yourselves safe, keep each other safe. maintain that focus on them first, right? What we do as firefighters is supposed to be for them, right? For them first. We're
100%.
putting ourselves at risk for a reason, right? For those of you that will say, "Oh, we come first because we can't save them unless we keep ourselves safe." Yeah, there is some truth to that, but we have to understand that we are putting ourselves at risk every time that we go to work, every time that we answer the pager, every time we go to the firehouse, step on the apparatus, put your gear on. We're putting ourselves at risk. And if we're going to put ourselves first, then we'll stay in bed and never move, right? So what we're doing is for their safety. So in order for us to do that, right, we have to train, right? We have to keep ourselves sharp. And the best way to do that is by physically doing it, ask questions, and be humble and understand that we're not going to have all the answers, right? But we should be seeking out the answers, right? We should be looking at ourselves as firefighters, looking at yourself as a leader, look at yourself as a department, and do that, internal size up, right? To conduct a real-time assessment, right, of your strengths and weaknesses so that we can work on that, right? Because that's what's going to make us better and make those around us better. And if we do
Absolutely.
that, then we'll be able to do our job.
Absolutely. Do you have anything? I mean, this was amazing. This was a great program. I really think everybody's going to like it. Do you have anything else you'd like to say to the people?
Listen, I appreciate the opportunity. I wish you a lot of luck. I appreciate what you're doing. I think that it's important for firefighters and fire professionals and volunteers, right? And when I say professionals, I don't mean career, right? You can have a lot of great professional volunteers that are look, I'll take a bunch of volunteers that are into the job and love the job, right? Over some guys that are there for a paycheck, right? So when I say
Professionalism is a state of mind. It's not a paycheck.
I don't want anybody out there thinking when I say professionals, I'm talking about career, right? Or a paycheck. So,
100%.
yeah. So, what you're doing out there, having these people like kind of get different points of view from different people is an excellent thing, because you know what? I can take 5 structural collapse classes, or I could take whatever, right? And as long as I'm hearing and listening to different instructors, I'm going to get a different point of view, and there's something new that I'm going to take away from it.
Yeah.
So having the point of different people is something that's definitely needed in the fire service. If anybody wants to reach out to me, you can find me on Instagram at Promotional Prep. You can go on our website, promotionalprep.com, and there you can sign up for email newsletters. You can send us emails and questions, whatever the case is. And if you're in the North Hudson area and it's a Group 3, Division 3 day, find me. All right, show you around, man.
Or you can find them in Central Jersey.
You find me in Central Jersey, wherever that happens to be. No. Also, LinkedIn as well. LinkedIn, I have Alider Pratts. I have a profile. I don't know what the hell the link is, but you can find me on LinkedIn as well. I'm sure you might post. I don't know if you're going to post anything out there.
Absolutely, I'm going to post all your links in the details on all the different social medias where I'm going to post this video, and hang out for a second. We'll say goodbye off air. I'm going to say goodnight and give a little detail, and then I'll be right with you. We'll say goodnight off air.
Good.
Everyone, I want to thank you on behalf of NJ Fire Guys for tuning in tonight. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I appreciate everybody being interested and getting involved, and all your questions if you have any. I'm going to set the links in the details for tonight's show for Promotional Prep and for Chief Pratts' contact information. Thank you very much. Have a good night, and as always, stay safe. What do you think?